secret location in the city that moves mountains. Greetings.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick some, and I'm all out of bubblegum, baby.
Simon says hello.
There we go.
Oh, yes, got it right on the spot. And we got some news coming up just a little bit later on about Simon. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I am doing good. I muted my mic and cough there. But I'm doing good. We're doing this early in the week, recording the radio show than what we normally do. We actually just finished recording the podcast show a little bit ago. So I guess I'll let the cat out of the bag a little bit. It is on Sunday. And if you listen to both shows, you'll be hearing some of the same email that we read on the podcast show. That is because last week we weren't able to have a show on the podcast show. We had a multitude the Here to Chew Bubblegum programming that is available, all mishmashed together. And so we're going to do right by these people, and we're going to read their email on the radio as well. Before we get started, Dirty Dan, and we talked about this, Simon, I want your opinion. There was an accident in Pennsylvania. Was it yesterday, Dirty Dan, or the day before yesterday?
It was Thursday.
Okay. And 4 lab monkeys escaped that they've done experiments on.
They've caught 3 of the 4, by the way.
Okay. I thought they caught the 4th one as well.
As I was looking in between the break, and all I found was that 3 of the 4 been caught.
Okay, so you've still got 1 on the loose. But anyway, these are lab monkeys, and I want your opinion on this, Simon. The CDC are supposedly aiding local officials, quote, in a technical aspect only. If these monkeys are not dangerous or at harm to humans with what they've been exposed to, why would the CDC be helping? What's your thoughts on that, Simon?
Well, I'm going to try not to get political as much as possible.
Okay.
With the CDC. All I got to say is the CDC used to be a respectable organization and stuff, and now they've just turned into a joke.
Yeah. What's your thoughts, Dirty Dan?
Oh, I mean, I'll reiterate what I said in the podcast. They were going to Merck Pharmaceuticals, and Merck was a place that was right outside Willow Grove area in Pennsylvania. And being one of the few civilians allowed on the property for my old job, there's a lot of stuff there, including their own farm of both domestic and exotic animals before and after testing. But my understanding is the primates that were in transit had already been subjected to something, and part of the results they were looking for was how they acclimated or reacted to this large move through this harsh weather, just the whole situation. I am a firm believer that stuff needs to stop. Merck Pharmaceuticals has covered up I'll say for lack of a better term, but it's appropriate, disposal of an ex-employee who was talking out. Several of them in PA have. So people need to wake up and realize this stuff is in fact going on. And there are more suitable candidates, referring to what Goose said in the podcast, that should be the testing done on, not these poor animals.
I totally agree with you. Dirty Dan, you want to start out with the first email this week?
Yes, sir. I can most certainly do that. We have Chaz writing in, says, "Greetings. Hello, everyone. My name is Chaz. December 21st, 2012 was the date of the Mayan calendar ended. Most people thought the world would end, when in fact the calendar never said that. It was just an end. This is similar to our calendar ending each year. Anyway, do you think it did end and we are now in another dimension, or that they were off by 10 years and this coming December 21st, the world will go through some kind of happening? Thank you for your time and listen for your answer, Roswell. I agree with what Justin Perkins has said on that of the podcast, is that, I think they just went out so far and they just kind of stopped. Now, I think it was manifested that, something happened or changed in 2012. I mean, I would agree that my life changed then, and it seemed everything else did too. But I think that was not coincidence, because I don't believe in that, but it was manifestation. And I don't think, unless the next 10 months people start going gung-ho about that they were 10 years off or something, that anything's going to happen. I think it was merely just the end of where they stopped writing it out to.
I think you're correct. I think, it's fascinating that they were on point with all that stuff. But, and there's some people that are saying, yeah, they were 10 years off. It's going to happen this year. If it does, it does. 2012, and I said this on the podcast, was kind of a bad year for me personally anyway. So, and what I faced in 2012, I can face it again because I'm stronger now. And no, you are not going to get a song and a dance out of me after that. But it could go either way. I am fascinated by the minds and their advancement in mathematics and so forth and all that. What's your take on it, Simon?
I remember there was apps and stuff, and I remember when Instagram first came out, there was like people saying that it was going to end and stuff, and there was apps like counting down the days and the hours and stuff. But and there was a movie made out of it too.
Yeah,
that movie was actually very interesting. And I remember being a little kid, like 2011, my cousins was being jerks, trying to scare me and saying, "Man, we was at like the theater watching Grown Ups," and they said, "Man, that poster over there, remember 2012, the world's going to end." I think it was all hype, man. And I don't think the world's going to end. I agree with Dirty Dan. I think it was just end of calendar and stuff.
Yeah, I do too. I totally agree with you. Simon, the next email's yours.
All right, this is from Elizabeth. Hello, I'm from Washington State, and my name is Elizabeth. I was listening to an old show. You had mentioned Mel's Hole. I've researched this, but wanted to hear your thoughts again. Plus, it'll give Rebecca and Dirty Dan a chance to share their thoughts, to being that they weren't on the show when it was mentioned. Peace, and keep paying it forward, Elizabeth. Thank you for that email, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. And that will give Dirty Dan and Simon a chance to talk about that. Now, Mel's Hole, I had heard about it. It was on an Art Bell episode. It was this hole where this guy supposedly found on his property in Washington State. It had no bottom that could be seen. They sent several objects down in there, I think like a live sheep, and animals were skittish of this. They would stay away. And then, the guy did like maybe 2 or 3 different interviews with Art Bell. The last one that he did, he said like the military came in and took it over and so forth, and they were doing experiments and stuff with it. The research that I found out, it was fake. The whole story was fabricated. That's the research I found out. And you feel the same way, don't you, Dirty Dan?
Yes.
Simon, yeah. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Simon, had you ever heard of Mel's Hole?
No.
Okay. Are you going to go look it up now since you've heard about it?
I don't know if I want to search that on Google or not.
Oh, no. I mean, it's like this big sinkhole in the ground. So,
I'll reiterate from the podcast again too. I firmly believe that it is in ties or relation to, or someone followed suit of the Florida lawyer, and that's all people need to look up, and they'll know what I'm talking about.
Well, I mean, and when you look that up, and I didn't really, I don't remember if I made this comment on the podcast show or not. I think I did, but the whole John Teeter thing's tied back to a Florida lawyer.
Did.
That could have been the same one testing the waters before all this Mel's Hole stuff came out. Yeah, or not I mean, he was testing the waters with this, and then the John Teeter time traveler stuff came out.
Someone is having a hard time not giggling every time the word Mel's Hole is mentioned.
We could call it Mel's Diner. Anyway, moving on to listener email. Firewater writes in. He says, "Hey, Goose, DirtyDan, and Rebecca, Queen of the Flock. Firewater here. I just wanted to drop a few lines and say, wow, what an awesome show. Having Oren on was definitely an added treat. That guy cracks me up. I hope you all do another segment about Antarctica, too. I'm still trying to dig around here at work to find more things of what the company's involvement is with the ship in Antarctica. I hope that the added information helped out Dirty Dan. If you all need more info, please let me know. Talk to you soon. Keep on flocking. Keep on grilling. Roswell Firewater." Thank you very much, Firewater. He is a friend of the show, and fascinating what he does. And he is as intrigued about Antarctica as we are. And
I think he's about as intrigued as everything as we are.
Simon, have you done any research on Antarctica or heard anything?
I listened to a little bit of your guys' episode, and I believe that it said that there is no country that actually claims Antarctica.
Right. That is correct. Now, they have different sections. No one owns it and so forth. And it was declared off limits. I don't have that information. It was in the 50s that it was declared off limits.
Like 56 or 57.
Yeah. And there's this whole thing you can find. I actually sent Justin a picture. You can go to I think it was a 1953 Encyclopedia Britannica. You open that up to Antarctica, and it talks about a firmament, like a shield, being so far up. And it talks about other things about, tropical, Antarctica being kind of tropical in the center and stuff. All that stuff was taken out after, I think, 1953. But you can still, if you ever find an Encyclopedia Britannica at a yard sale, please buy that. I will give your money back for that, and just contact us. I would love to get my hands on one of those and read it for myself. We will be doing a part 2 on the podcast show on Antarctica, and we may do a radio version of Antarctica maybe in a couple of weeks. We could get Rebecca in here with us, with Simon and so forth, and we can definitely do that. Dirty Dan, the next email is yours.
So we have Brett writing and says, "Hello, here to chew bubblegum. What do you do for fun or pastime?" Me, I'm a gamer. I'm into games. My favorite game would be Red Dead Redemption 2. When it isn't too cold, I like to fish. I struggled with saying Red Dead Redemption 2. That's a tongue twister.
Red Dead Redemption 2 or RDR 2.
I'm not a gamer. I've said it before. I bought an Xbox 360 when I went to college because it was cheaper than an actual DVD player. I'm outside whether it's cold or hot. And what I do for work is what I love. It just depends if I'm getting paid or spending money doing it. That's about the only difference.
And we talked about Red Dead Redemption a little bit last week. Me and Simon did, and you can actually go fishing and hunting in the game Red Dead Redemption. So, for fun and to pass the time, when I've got free time, I do like to watch movies and so forth. I do game a little bit. I used to game a whole lot, but not so much. So, what about you, Simon?
I listen to podcasts, and just like him, man, when it's warm outside, I also fish. Love fishing off a kayak and stuff. But, yeah, man, definitely listen to Here True Bubblegum, listen to Justin Perkins' podcast, listen to the Spooky Family podcast, listen to Joey Diaz's podcast. I love just listening to podcasts, man, that put great content out there and stuff.
Do you remember?
Shameless plug.
All right, and I'll start with you, Dirty Dan. What was the first podcast, and what year did you listen to the first podcast?
Diesel Power Podcast 2012.
Oh, what was the name of the podcast again?
Diesel Power Podcast.
Okay. For me, it goes back to May of 2006. I listened to Dead Pit .com, their podcast. And at that time, that was their, maybe their like 8th show. What about you, Simon?
I think just like a lot of people out there, JRE with Joe Rogan back in 2015. My first episode listening to his podcast was with Joey Diaz.
Well, Simon,
I listened to podcasts before that, but that was like the first show I actually like followed and like listened to consecutively. I'd listen to some every now and then, but that was the first one I could actually like follow.
Simon, the next email is yours, and then I'll wrap it up.
All right, this is from Obi of the Strange. It says, "Hi, it's Obi. I wanted to say I enjoyed the show last Sunday, and I listened each Sunday. I'm looking forward to bowling cocks on the show until I write back, Roswell."
Yes, and be sure to check out our YouTube page for Bowling with Bolin. That is on there. UFO Smith says, "Hello all, long-time listener, first time writing in. Let's start with last week's show. I don't agree with all of it, but I did find that the episode was very interesting. Second, other than what was discussed on the show, what's something that we can expect on part 2 of Antarctica? Before I close out my email, I want to tell you that I love the Bowling Cox clips that you played, Roswell." And that one's going back to our Antarctica episode on the podcast. Thank you very much, UFO Smith. On part 2, we talked a lot about Antarctica on our Antarctica special of the podcast, but we did leave a lot out. Now, Antarctica is a big, big area. And I'm sure we'll talk. One of the things I would like to talk about next time is how they have uncovered leaves from palm trees. They've uncovered tropical plants that only grow in tropical climates so far under the ice. That was definitely one of the things I want to talk about, and so forth. What about you, Dirty Dan?
I'm sorry. Owen actually just messaged me, and that that threw me off for a hot second. I'd like to talk more about the under ice caverns and those rooms that they have in there, and where they kind of lead, because they're starting to get mentioned more, but it's kind of like a rabbit hole in itself of wondering where they end or how they're made or why they're there, and I want to go below the surface. I'll put it that way.
There you go. What about you, Simon? What's something you'd like to learn or talk about about Antarctica?
Oh man, just listening to you guys just spit out knowledge about Antarctica and stuff, man. Just learn a lot. Really, the only thing I know is that no country owns it.
Yeah, well, you're definitely going to have to do some research, because it's definitely a fascinating subject. I wanted to thank everyone that did send an email. Don't forget, you can always call, text, or leave a voicemail by calling 606-373-3396. That's 606-373-3396. Keep it clean, and we'll play it on the radio show. Or they can email. How can they do that, Dirty Dan? And a surprise is coming up as you tell people how to do this.
Finally make it?
Yes.
All right. So if you want to email them to the show, you can email Goose at here@chewbubblegum.com. You can email myself, DirtyDan at here@chewbubblegum.com. You can email Rebecca at here@chewbubblegum.com. Or, fresh off the press, I believe you can email Simon at here@chewbubblegum.com. So, folks, go send Simon an email. Send him some love. Welcome him to the family. Get him some content he's got to do some research on and bring on the show. Let's have some fun with that. Or if you just want to email him to the show in general, it's here@chewbubblegum@yahoo.com.
That is exactly right. Simon, your email is set up and ready to go. What do you think about that?
Simon says, send me an email.
All right, Simon, we're going to jump straight into segment 1. We'll let you start out this week. What do you have for us this week, Simon?
I got a UFO sighting out of Blacksburg, South Carolina, and this is by National UFO Reporting Center. And this was November the 13th of 2020 at 3 p.m. I seen a flashing light that was not an airplane. I was laying in a swing and I seen some flashing in the sky, and it was not an airplane. It flashed 6 times in 10 seconds.
Did they ever? I'm sorry. Did anybody ever today do some research, and did they try to find out or pinpoint what it was or so forth?
No, that's all it says. But kind of sounds like a satellite, maybe.
And what was the date on it again?
November 13th, 2020, 3 p.m.
Okay. See, you didn't have Starlink going up then. They were still in the pre-planning. They were still here on Earth. They always say satellite or a weather balloon or an internet balloon and so forth. I wonder how far that is from the ocean. Just out of curiosity.
You see stuff in Myrtle Beach all the time.
Well, and typically, and we've talked about it on the show before, power plants, military bases, over large bodies of water, you have more sightings there.
Now, an hour and a half north of Myrtle Beach, you got Duke Energy, and it is a 2,200 or 2,500 acre complex. It's a big old place. It's right along 17. When you're going up before you get to Wilmington, you can see it all on the left. You just pass it, and it goes on for miles.
Right.
And they have all them waterways going into there. So, I don't know.
Well, definitely very interesting. But if you're just now, it's first time listening, and you're fascinated with UFOs, UAPs, whatever you may call them, you always, and you can research this, military bases, bodies of water, power plants, those are your typical hot spots. I'm going to talk briefly about or maybe not briefly, but I'm going to talk about a 1953 Arizona UFO crash. And you can find this story on UFOcasebook.com. Though some considered this a hoax by UFO investigators, there are interesting accounts and facts of a UFO crash that comes to us from Arizona. The facts are certainly worth a look. Famed researcher Raymond Fowler first broke the details of this event of May 20th, 1953 in 1973. Although it was known to UFO investigator Richard Hall as early as 1964. Fowler stated that the information came from engineer Fritz Werner, who later was identified by his real name, Arthur G. Stansel. Stansel graduated from the Ohio University in 1949 and was first employed by Air Material Command at, you guessed it, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, as a mechanical engineer who worked on testing Air Force aircraft engines. Dr. Eric Wayne, who was also suspected of leading a reverse engineering team on alien craft, led the installations division within the Office of Special Studies where Arthur worked. Stansel signed legal affidavits vouching that what he said was the truth and his testimony, and he signed those for Ray Fowler, and this story was released. He signed those in 1976, and this story first appeared in UFO Magazine. Arthur was working at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and he was summoned by his boss on May 21st, 1953, and sent on a secret assignment. After being flown to Phoenix, Arizona, he was placed on a bus with blacked-out windows and taken to a point some 4 hours northwest of Phoenix. The engineer was amazed once he got off the bus to see a disc-shaped craft embedded in the sand. Stansel estimated that its diameter was about 30 feet. Military personnel surrounded the aluminum-like craft, which was brought down by either an internal explosion or was hit by military rockets. Stansel's duty was to calculate the speed of the craft, a task he quickly discharged. Afterwards, the tense atmosphere of the group of investigators began to loosen, and they began to ask details and talk to other personnel assigned to the off-the-record mission. He was told that a small cabin inside the craft was very, very small and contained 4 chairs. He did not look into the unknown craft himself. He was taken back when he peeked into a nearby medical tent. Inside the medical tent, he saw a small body of a creature about 4 foot tall. He asserts that the alien was wearing a type of skull cap and a silver suit. The suit seemed to be seamless. Soon the investigation and investigators were called to a halt, and the members were loaded back on the bus and were quickly taken out of the area. Back on the bus, all the members of the assignment were ordered to sign the Official Secrets Act and were warned not to discuss what they saw with anyone. There was additional information to the validity of the Arizona crash. Personnel at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base claimed that they have been witnesses and that they saw several deliveries from a crash site in Arizona. Those witnesses are military, and they did not want to identify themselves. Now, what I find interesting about that story is that happened in 1953, Roswell in 1947, 6 years prior. And there's facts in that Arizona UFO crash with the ship, the 4 seats, the skull cap, the silver outer clothes on the supposed aliens. Those were facts that you can find now at Roswell when you research the Roswell crash, but you cannot find those. He could not have found those prior to 1953. Those were not out then. They were all sealed. Dirty Dan, what's your thoughts on that?
Let's just talk about how in the every solid UFO crash story or exploration story, Right Pat is always brought up in being tied to it, whether it's receiving end or they're the ones going to retrieve it. Like, they are always always mentioned. And as someone who has toured the Air Force Museum several times, with his father that was in the Air Force as a missile air commander, Wright Pat is a very interesting place. Very interesting place. And hopefully one day, sooner rather than later, we can know some more about it, and I can go back because I have a lot of questions. Yeah. I always leave with more questions than I have answers, or than when I came there with.
You know, and you mentioned that their name always comes up as with technology or taking stuff to there. And this was, I guess, about a year ago. I was doing some research, and it was on another crash. It was on the, I think it was the Aztec, New Mexico crash. All that stuff supposedly got sent back to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base as well. And you started thinking about this, and you're wondering why you would send it to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, which is like 5 hours from where I'm at. It's probably 3 from where you're at.
Well, when my dad and I went, my parents had come down last year, or my dad just came down last year, and that was in October. It took me like an hour and a half.
Okay, so but you lived closer then. Well, it may take me 4 hours now. It may not take that long, because the last time I was in Dayton was like 2007, so it took me a little while. But and this is just my own opinion. My own opinion that I have formulated doing the research. You ask, why would it be in Ohio? Ohio is not that many air miles from the nation's capital. You could get there in, 20 minutes or so?
Like 30, 35 minutes late.
You know, and that's why I think at that time, and maybe still today, I still think there's some stuff at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base today. Now, something this just dawned on me. We will have to look and research. Simon, this is a homework assignment for you. Okay.
So I got something for you after you say that, because I'm going to blow your mind here. Okay.
Simon, this is your homework assignment. I want you before next week's show to look up Dayton, Ohio, and Groom Lake on a map and see if they're kind of like diagonal from each other. Not diagonal, but straight. If it's in a straight line. Can you do that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what's your thoughts on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Simon?
The funny thing is, I actually got a buddy that lives close to there who actually had a UFO sighting, and it's a no-flying zone at his house.
Wow, really? You need to get up with him, or we need to get our friend Seth to do an interview with that guy?
He's definitely going to be on soon.
Okay, good. DirtyDan, take it away, sir.
So Wright Pat Air Force Base and the museum are all in the same area, but they're not together anymore. The Air Force Museum, okay, that's the base is starred.
Right.
You see that triangle right there?
Yeah.
That's the museum. All right. That museum is an arrow. If you look at it, there's the tail, and then it's the arrow, and it's pointing southwest. It points literally right to Roswell.
Okay. So it points right to. So it's
if you took
straight shot
and put a pinpoint on Roswell, and took your ruler, straight line to it.
So, if you were a betting man, and I'll start out with you, Simon, underground tunnels from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to Groom Lake, Area 51, yes or no? Why or why not?
Oh, man, I don't know.
DirtyDan, same question.
100% yes.
I'm going to say yes, too.
There are, when you are, the way we came in, we were on 675, got off on 844, and came around the backside of the base to come in because the museum entrance is on that corner. You come in and you drive up and around to the parking lot, like through Page Manor.
Right.
And there are, like the tunnels going in the Chesapeake?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There are entrances like that you see.
Really?
That it is too small to be an aircraft hangar.
Okay.
Way too small. Like you'd have to clip the wings off a Cessna 172. Way too small. So you can see, like you can catch a glimpse of one and you just see it go down. Like you can see a hole.
That's, wow. You said to fly from Dayton to Washington, D.C., 35 minutes. What if what you saw, what if there's multiple tunnels? I mean, maybe you have one main one, but it branches off and so forth all over the United States. And I'm sure that it does, a deep underground military base. What if you've got one from Area 51, Groom Lake, that could get to Dayton, Ohio, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, all underground in a train type or a subway type, high-speed one in 30 to 35 minutes as well. Because, think about that. If you could do that, you could be from Area 51 to Washington, D.C., if you had to, in about an hour. And nobody would ever know about it if you did not want them to. I'm going to have to start doing some research on tunnels tunnels around Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm waiting for the Boring Company, owned by none other than my boy Elon,
right,
to find something and talk about it and not realize what he just stumbled into. Remember, he is boring all those tunnels under Las Vegas now. They got a contract for like another 220 miles or something like that. They're going to find something.
Yeah. DirtyDan, what do you have for us in segment one before we wrap it up and go to break here?
So I actually have a story that I find a little interesting that my dad sent me. And it's kind of unnerving almost. From the 19th of this month. It's titled Massive Intelligence Gathering Effort Underway Over Europe. Earlier today, 10 surveillance aircraft from multiple NATO members, including Britain, flew over the Baltics and the Ukraine. They have a basically graphic showing a collection of NATO and Swedish ISR flights from the 30th of December up to January 18th. And I want to know what they're doing and why. And they're literally forming. You can see all the flight plans. They're forming like a honeycomb over this one area, and I don't know why, but it's the following tweets reproduced with permission are part of a collaboration between two well-known and well-respected Twitter accounts. Amelia Earhart tracks and details the activities of the aircraft of various armed forces and keeps people informed on what those aircraft are doing. She also has a blog you can visit here. It's a hyperlink. Orion_int is a freelance open source intelligence analysis known for combining 3D tracks with satellite imagery. Activity in the time period examined below focuses on the Kaliningrad and Crimea. According to Amelia Earhart, the following Western surveillance aircraft were in the air today. So they have USNP-8s, Army's RC-12Xs, Air Force's RC-135s and E-8s, British P-8, British RC-135, Swedish S-100 and 102s, Norwegian 20 ECMs, and a German P-3C. And I'm going to make this maybe technology, and I don't get along very well.
Oh, you're fine.
I was going to bring up the picture. Hang on. And at least show you guys over here. It's kind of interesting. And I'm struggling to understand what they're doing here. But
You think that could be weather control, HARP involved, or anything like that, or?
But do you see how they kind of like blossom?
Yeah.
There's another one with. Oh, here we go. Like there's the actual flight path.
Wow, that's Simon, what's your take on that?
I mean, I agree, man. I think they're trying to control the weather and push this global warming agenda against people even more.
And they claim that it's a massive Western effort underway related to the Ukraine in the face of a potential Russian invasion. We've all seen that going on, that the surveillance flights are. However, they're not flying close enough to they're focusing way away from the Western military front, but they're all circling into it. Now, my understanding is we're not allowed to or supposed to technically fly into Russian airspace, yet there are hundreds of miles that they're in there. Why?
Yeah.
And it's NATO, so all of NATO is not friendly to the Russians.
Right.
You know, they're not part of that. They're not with that. And not one of them has been shot down. And none of them are like reconnaissance aircraft that are like 80,000 feet plus up like a U-2 or an SR-71 or anything. They're all like a C-135. That's a propeller aircraft. You can't fly it that high because it runs out of air to be able to bite in and fly.
Right.
So I have some real questions.
Well, we're going to take a break. We're going to have a new Mysterious Appalachian Mountains with Seth. And when we come back, what are you going to be talking about, DirtyDan, when we come back?
I'm going to completely reverse there. And the article's titled Strange Things Out There Inside Lake Ontario's Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, okay. Sounds good to me. You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. We'll be back in just a moment.
Appalachian Mountains with Seth and David. How are you doing today, David?
Doing great, Seth. Glad to be back.
Yes, sir, man. And what would you think about our two-part show with Connor Flynn, Bigfoot researcher out of Florida?
I think it's pretty awesome. I think we could probably do about 3 or 4 more episodes with him.
Hey, man, he's definitely very interesting and definitely has a lot of passion for the Bigfoot world and cryptids.
Yeah, I've started following him myself and watching his videos as of now.
Yeah, man, he's definitely very entertaining, and I could listen to him talk for hours.
For sure, he's got a lot of charisma, doesn't he?
Absolutely, man. I think if you're a movie actor, you have to.
Right. kind of required.
Yeah. All right, man. I got a story for you, and it's actually a UFO sighting out of Huntsville, Alabama, November the 30th of 2020 at 12:40 a.m. It actually gives the time. Wow. And the
Well,
source is
pretty recent.
What's that?
Pretty recent.
Yep. And the source is National UFO Reporting Center. Saw a teal light, thought it was lightning at first, but the teal color was solid and stayed there for a few seconds and blinked a few times. Reached for my phone to record it. It disappeared with no trace. It wasn't a power outage. The teal light was a distance away, but very large. What do you think about that? What's your opinion on that?
It kind of sounds like the light orbs that a lot of people see, doesn't it? I mean, like
Yeah.
the Foo Fighters back in World War II and whatnot. Also, I wish there was a little more detail, other than just being a light, because it really sounds like one of the orbs that is commonly associated with Bigfoot. I'd hate to say, but yeah, it really sounds like a very interesting story. Like I said, just wish there was a little bit more detail in there. But that is a very common thing that is seen is the balls of light. It's when you get into the triangle shape type aircraft that really gets interesting. But these balls of light, who knows what they are? No one knows. It's kind of strange.
I mean, it's really weird that he says just disappeared out of nowhere.
Right. Yeah. And that's pretty common with those light balls. And like I said, you hear about those all the way back to World War II, chasing the fighter pilots around, the Foo Fighters. And there might be some differences in them, but I don't know if there's a size difference or not. Most of the ones you hear on the ground with other sightings are normally about the size of a grapefruit up to the size of a small beach ball. I'm pretty sure the ones that the old fighter pilots used to see were quite a bit bigger than that. So that's a very interesting story, and it's really recent, which is really, really nice. Hearing these recent sightings gives us something else to, other places to go out and look and see what we can find on our own.
And have you heard of a lot of UFO sightings in your area here lately?
No, I've been hearing more about it in the Michigan area. There was a triangle craft saw up there not long ago. I wish I had the ad in front of me, the article, but I don't. But yeah, it was something real similar to what they seen out in Phoenix and back in '96.
Wow, man. We definitely could do an episode on that for sure. I mean, if you can, hopefully you can find the article. I know how it is with phones and stuff losing articles all the time.
Yeah, and you read and look through so many all the time. It's I need to come up with some sort of filing system for this stuff for sure.
Yeah, definitely a screenshot.
Yeah, screenshot everything exactly.
Yeah, man. That was definitely a very interesting story, man. And yeah, what is the most interesting story about UFO sightings that you've heard here lately?
The most interesting one, I was a voluntary firefighter and his son coming back from work real late one night. That actually happened in Indiana. It's been a few years ago now, so it's not exactly real new, but it's very interesting as anyway. They were coming back from work late one night. So they're both voluntary firefighters, right? So they were looking over, over the side of the road, and they saw a bunch of blinking lights, thought it was emergency vehicles. So being firefighters like they were, they drive over there to see what it is. Well, when they get, I think they said roughly about 100 yards from it, the car completely shut down, all electrical systems shut down. And what they saw was a circular craft with lights pulsing around it and sparks flying from underneath, and it was just kind of just hovering in the cornfield. they said they saw it, sat there and watched it for 3 to 5 minutes. Then all of a sudden, in a blink of an eye, the thing took off and was gone. Their car came back on, and they were able to make it on their way. That is really strange.
Wow, man. Definitely here in Kentucky, we hear a lot about the like little lights like you was talking about in the story that I read, and that's what we hear like here lately, man. Just seeing them like little orbs, and I don't know what you exactly call them.
Well, some people call them will o' the wisp. You're not a lot of Native Americans. They'll tell you not to follow them, not to show any kind of um, uh, not show them any kind of attention, because the more attention you show them, the more attention they give back to you. And I guess that's not necessarily a good thing. What's really strange is those lights are seen all over America, a lot in the southern states. Even I believe it's out in Arizona. There's a certain town out there that you can see these lights almost every night, and you can drive toward them but never get to them.
Wow, that's definitely very interesting stuff, man, and definitely look forward to hearing that story out of Michigan. And
Yeah, I'll dig that up.
absolutely, man, that would be awesome. And this has been the Mysterious Appalachian Mountains with Seth and David. Y'all have a good night, and God bless.
The world was on fire, no one could save me but you.
You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. If Abraham Lincoln were alive, he'd listen, but he's dead.
This is Simon, and you're listening to Here's Your Bubblegum. Let's get with. Oh,
You're totally fine, man. We're still rolling. I'm Goose.
DirtyDan.
DirtyDan. And I am so leaving that in there. I'm so leaving it in there, Simon. People loved your solar flare thing, by the way. I had people comment on that.
I say so.
DirtyDan, you're going to tell us about Lake Superior. Now, is this
Lake Ontario?
Lake Ontario. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, when experienced amateur pilot Ron Scott set out from Picton Airport in a Cessna 172 in the summer of 1975, there was no reason to suspect trouble. The sky was clear, the wind was calm, perfect weather for a short pleasure flight over the shores of Prince Edward County. But as his plane made its way over Prince Edward Point, the peninsula at the county's southeastern tip, something unnerving began to happen. With no sign of turbulence, the plane banked sharply to one side and locked itself in that position. It was as if an invisible giant took hold of the wing, says Scott. I could not straighten it out. Without the ability to counter, Scott feared his plane would flip over entirely and fall into a spin, which at 1,000 feet would have been tough to pull out. His plane began to right itself, however, after about 10 seconds. Then, suddenly, the same thing happened to the other wing. Somehow, despite all the midair chaos, Scott was able to make it down safely, though he was understandably rattled. It shakes you up a bit, like what just happened. Scott, 46 years later, still wonders. He has flown in about every kind of weather imaginable, but has no explanation for what occurred that day. It was just totally weird, says Scott. I've never experienced nothing like that ever before or since, and I've never heard of anything like that. There are strange things out there. However, his story is hardly an isolated tale. At the same spot, almost 23 years earlier, a Royal Canadian Air Force pilot, Barry Allen Newman, plummeted 20,000 feet into the lake in a P-51 fighter. No reason, clear skies, calm day again, and he was never recovered. Going back to something Seth and I talked about on my interview with him was a ghost ship. And on May 28th, 1889, the schooner Bavaria entered the final stretch of its journey hauling timber from Toledo to Garden Island near Kingston. The vessel was part of a trio of ships under tow by a steam barge. No sooner did the boats round the edge of Prince Edward County Point than they were caught in what Captain Anthony Malone of the barge described in the papers as a living gale. Unable to withstand the force of the heavy winds and mountainous seas, the tow line snapped, sending the Bavaria careening into one of the other schooners. Fearing the worst, Malone circled a ship back to the Bavaria to offer assistance, but there was no one there to assist. The Bavaria appeared to still be in working condition, but the entire crew, including its captain, John Marshall, was missing. Even more mysterious was when the ship ran aground at a nearby island. It was found to be entirely undamaged, save for a missing lifeboat. Everything in the cabin was dry. Even a pan of bread set in the oven to bake is still there, wrote Kingston in the Daily British Whig. The Oswego Daily Palladium noted that Captain Marshall was a good man and not one to act rashly or without thought. In total, 8 men and women disappeared that day, and their bodies were never recovered. It was as if they had fallen through a crack in the lake, to borrow a common phrase in Great Lakes shipping lore. And it's now been labeled as the gateway to Oblivion. From the tragic fate of the Bavaria's crew, it's one of just dozens of mysterious tales from the eastern shores of Lake Ontario that are documented in Hugh F. Cochrane's 1980 book, Gateway to Oblivion. The locals are aware of the strange stories that come out of this area, says Picton-based storyteller Janet Kello. But it was Cochrane who came up with the name the Marysburg Vortex. The vortex is generally thought to encompass the eastern part of Lake Ontario, bounded by Prince Edward County on the west, Kingston to the east, and Oswego, New York to the south. The mysterious region includes and gets its name from the southern portion of Prince Edward County, historically known as Marysburg Township. The name took on a life of its own, and it became code for anything that didn't quite go right in your life. Kellogg, a seventh-generation Prince Edward County native, has become somewhat of an unofficial chronicler of the legend. She admits she hasn't spoken about the vortex in a long time. However, interest in the story has waned in recent years, and the county has become increasingly dominated by a tourism industry that seems largely uninterested in the local history. While public interest in Lake Ontario's maritime legends and lore may be fading, our knowledge of Great Lakes shipwrecks has never been more complete. Discovering a wrecked ship may conjure up images of divers scouring the water with advanced sonar, but the reality is the majority of new wrecks are now identified by internet sleuths poring over digitalized newspaper archives and vessel registries. There's a list made by Brennan Ballard, which details the general whereabouts of nearly 5,000 documented shipwrecks across Great Lakes, though he is saying that the true number might be close to 8,000 at this point. The highest concentrate of those shipwrecks and ghost ships, though, is within that Marysburg Vortex, which has 270 shipwrecks just in that little square mileage area. They are still working on it, and they estimate there's about 500 there. And, I mean, it is the newest one they have listed is a ship from 1917. Most of them are in the 1800s. And they're all mysterious disappearances like the Bavaria or the Schooner Picton. And I just had a brain fart on what I was going to say.
Hey, dude, it happens, man. It happens.
It's
I've always liked lost treasure and stuff like that.
It's in the shallowest part of Lake Ontario, too.
I wonder why nobody's ever went and tried to recover it or anything.
I think it's just because of how it comes, because it just, in a matter of what looks like a mile or so, it's like a straight, like they're settled on a ridge or a tilt. It just comes way up. So I think it's probably due to stability and safety issues. Although, I mean, I'm sure someone's got to be ballsy enough to go out there.
Yeah, definitely. Simon, what do you have for us next? And then we'll close things out and wrap it up. It's getting about that time.
Yep. I got a UFO sighting out of DirtyDan's home state of Pennsylvania.
Yes, it is. Please share that with us.
All right, this is out of Oakdale, Pennsylvania, and this was November the 8th of 2020 at 9:15 p.m. And the source is National UFO Reporting Center. Possible UFO sighting in a small town. I was laying in bed when I looked out my window and saw a light in the sky. At first, I thought it was a plane because the airport isn't too far from my home, but it didn't act like a plane. I was staying in one spot for a minute, and then it would move more over a bit to the right and then stop again. When it moved, it would leave a trail of light behind it. The UFO was also fading in and out, like the light would die out and then come back again. After watching it for a minute, it started making a descent at about a 45-degree angle, but I am unsure if it landed or not. The UFO was emitting a haze around itself and looked like a shooting star at first.
There's a lot of them. There was a sighting over New York recently that I'll just go ahead and talk about it real quick, and then we'll wrap things up. A UFO was filmed over New York City as strange lights fill the sky. When you hear about UFO sightings, they often seem to happen in smaller towns and less populated areas. But that isn't always the case. And because we don't have as much buildings with street lights and all that stuff, and you can see better. That's just a little nerd fact for you. One strange encounter happened in America's largest city, New York. It was filmed in Brooklyn, right across the river from Manhattan. A man who wished to remain anonymous noticed 3 orbs of light that formed a pyramid, seemingly hovering there. A plane flew nearby. Two of the lights immediately disappeared, and the third slowly dimmed before it also vanished. And this was in 2020 in New York City, and you can find a video of that online. Just search New York City UFO. I want to thank everyone for listening and tuning in. Dirty Dan, who are you going to tell us about this week?
So I'd like to talk about a company that is a small business owned in the U.S., founded in the U.S. Everything is made in the U.S. Called Fed Up Gear. Fed Up Gear. They do merch for my wife. They are going to do merch for us here at Bubblegum. Their website's fedupgear.com. Go out, go give Joe a shout. And he is proud member of and supporter of all military and veteran families. They're doing a lot of good getting their stuff out there and kind of spreading the awareness of the BS going on. Not to get too political, but they're bringing light to some situations. So if you can go out and support them, again, you're supporting a small business, you're supporting a local business, fedupgear.com. Don't forget to go check out Till Valhalla Project, tillvalhallaproject.com. Go to YouTube, check out Adventures with Purpose, or go to their website, adventureswithpurpose.com. And DJ Nikki's very own Carbon Capture Shield. That's lawn.carboncaptureshield.com.
I want to say special thanks to Carlin for all the voiceover work, and be sure to check out friends of our show that have their own shows. I'm talking about CK and Uncle Bill over at deadpit.com. Talk Junkie with Justin Perkins, Jordan Brad of Down the Holler, Seth Amberg with Seth Daly's podcast, Elliot Gertie and Beagle of SpookyFamilyPodcast.com, The Mountain Mysteries Podcast with Chris Sloan. That's the Mountain Mysteries Podcast.com with Chris Sloan. And don't forget about Cronkite Snowman and Large Marge over at Paranormal Trucker. And our friend of the show, John Marshall, is now the host of Beyond the Paranormal and Beyond the Paranormal podcast. You can hear him every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. You can find that on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. If you want to awaken more, be sure to check out Rebecca Short on TikTok and Twitch. That'll do it for this week. We'll see you next week. And until then, so long for now.
I'm not leaving. Maybe I'm just going home.
Like a solar flare, we're out.
Thanks for listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. Tune in next time as we dive deeper into things the government doesn't want us to know.